And you are live. Oh, hold on. Let me just. Nope, we are recording as well.
Beautiful. So welcome everyone. It is what day is it? It is February 23rd, 2026, and this is the Public and Legislative Affairs Committee. I'm calling it to order. And we are meeting in a virtual format here tonight. I would love for everyone to just go around and introduce themselves. I'll start. My name is Sarah Lentz. My pronouns are she, hers. I'm chair of the board and chair of this committee, and I will pass it to board member Sawtell.
Hi, I'm Jane Sawtell, board member at large, and I'm going to pass it to Fatuma Noor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Katuma Noor. I'm school board member for District 4. I'll pass it to Grace.
Good evening, everybody. Grace Valenzuela here. I am the Executive Director for Family Engagement and Community Partnership for the district, and I'll pass it to Dr. Sarah Warren.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Warren. I'm the Chief of Strategy and Operations for the district. And I will pass to Safa Mohammed.
Hi, I'm Safa. I'm school board rep for Deering, and I will pass it to Ali.
Hey everybody, Ali Miz. I am District 2 school board member, and I'm happy to be here. Who are we missing?
You were it. We did
I was,
it. We
okay
did
then.
it all. Good work, everyone. I just really like hearing everybody's voices at the top of the meeting. So thank you for indulging me. So tonight, it doesn't look like we have any attendees. So I don't think we need to have a public comment, but we'll wait just a couple more beats just to make sure. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone, so we're going to go ahead and close public comment. Folks are always welcome to email this committee if they have thoughts. But we do have just a couple of items on the agenda tonight. A little bit more around school funding and the EPS allocations for this year. I wanted to just give a quick summary on the recommendations that MEPRI has presented to the Education Committee at the state level around EPS funding formula for the future. And then also just looking at the legislative calendar for this week, which there aren't a lot of bills being discussed, but just want to make sure that there are no bills that we need to take any action on right now. So anything else anybody wanted to make sure was on the agenda for tonight?
Nope.
Okay, great. And I will just acknowledge that, legislative session is moving fast. And I think that we are all doing our best to stay on top of it. But just making sure folks are getting the MSMA updates now I think they're coming out on Mondays or Fridays. Those are really great summaries about what's happening in the State House. They don't track every bill that we are tracking, but it is a way to get like condensed information quickly. So just flagging that for folks. I did want to circle back. As you're all aware, the EPS allocation for this year has Portland losing $4.1 million in our funding as compared to last year. And the superintendent and myself have been really trying to work with our legislators on some potential solutions for that. And I think realistically, we will probably not get $4.1 million, but we are hopeful that we can find some replacement funding other ways. So one of the actions that we've taken is our student count has changed since the October 1st day. So we've submitted updated student counts to Augusta, which hopefully will help get some of the funds back to us, but also just continuing to work, especially with our representative Michael Brennan, on what options might look like. So I don't have any specifics to share right now, but just wanted to let everybody know that we're in lots of conversations about the EPS funding for this year, and then this relates to kind of the EPS recommendations that are now rolling out pretty quickly, and the committee is taking those under consideration right now. Any questions on that?
No, are you gonna is it LD 318?
LD 318 is yes, that's the one that they are working on.
Okay, yeah, because I that's the update that I had as well from Alicia Ray from the ACLU.
Oh, awesome.
And some two different articles that kind of explains what the studies are. So I can send that over right now.
Yeah, do you want to put those in the chat?
Got
And
you.
we
Will
can
do.
grab those.
Hmm.
And I'm curious of the folks that are on this call, who has had the opportunity to watch the presentation from MEPRI on the recommendations. Has anybody had a chance to watch? I mean, it is riveting content, let me tell you. No, it actually, I find it very interesting, but it is kind of like taking a master's class in finance and educational funding. I've had to, rewind and watch parts of it multiple times. But just want to try to keep everybody updated on what are the things that they're really looking at and the way the process is unfolding. So MEPRI is the organization that has done the study on the EPS funding formula and is making recommendations. And so they brought the recommendations to the education committee to get feedback on things, and then are going to be writing a bill based on the feedback that they have heard from the representatives in the committee. So the first thing that there seemed to be good consensus from the committee on is increasing the regional adjustment, which basically increases so that school districts are able to get more money per employee, because there's an acknowledgement in the formula that says that salaries are higher than $40,000 in a lot of districts. And so that is the regional adjustment. And we talked a little bit about that last time, but there does seem to be good consensus about that being part of the recommended changes, which would benefit Portland, as we know, because our salaries are much higher than a lot of the other districts around the state and SAUs. And then the second piece that came up was instead of just using valuation to determine what a community can pay, also using the amount of economically disadvantaged people in the community to kind of like weight that. And the committee is looking at a couple different options for that. What was presented to them was a 90-10 split, so that valuation would still have like 90% of the weight in that part of the calculation. And then 10% would be looking at what the community actually, what the income looks like. And I would say that the committee was pretty split on that percentage, because they showed a couple of places in the impact that would make if they were to shift the model that way, and really like the 90-10 split does barely, I mean it does make things a little bit better for Portland, but I would guess that within 2 to 3 years the 90-10 would not, we will get swallowed up again because of our valuation being so high. So there was an ask from the committee to see from MEPRI a 50-50 weight and a 70-25, I believe, to see how that would move move the allocations. And I think that it's important to note that the way that they're looking at the funding formula right now is not to increase the total amount of money that would be in the pipeline for allocation, but to reallocate those funds based on the changes that they'd be making to the formula. And there was also really good conversation from the committee about the layering of these, all the recommendations. So there's 4 recommendations, and how MEPRI would recommend layering or not. So if the regional adjustment happened, would the valuation be layered on top of that, or would it be an either or situation? And we don't know what MEPRI is going to say about that. So that's one thing that we're considering, or that they are considering. I do think that there might be potential for advocacy like within the next couple of weeks as we get clarity on where the committee is potentially what decision points they're making. And then the other two recommendations that have come out, there's one about changing weights for economically disadvantaged students, so that weight, which happens now, there's a multiplier for economically disadvantaged students, but it would be higher than it is right now. And finally, looking at special education and how that is, the allocation, because I think most folks know that the state says that it allocates for the cost of special education, but it doesn't. It's way they give us a lot less than it costs to educate a single student with special education services, and that has been true for years. And so the good news is that it seems like they're taking that seriously and want to make some adjustments to the ways that that is funded. But I don't know what that's going to look like. They're going to do, I believe, I don't know when. It feels like one big day up there, and I can't keep track of all the things that are happening. But that is something that they are looking at, and then also some recommendations around transportation that I didn't get the details on yet. But I do think that this is potentially going to move pretty quickly. I know that there is maybe a work session this week. One got canceled last week. And then MEPRI is potentially bringing a bill out in the next couple of weeks. So I think of kind of like all the funding challenges that we are up against. I think figuring out how to use community engagement and advocacy for the funding formula probably makes the most sense. But it's kind of we're still waiting on details. Does anybody have questions or thoughts or know more things about this than I was just able to say? So I wanted to ask Dr. Valenzuela if we are able to get clarity on, what the community can be doing. How do we get that information, and how do we get that information to you? And then, like, what is the timeline that you would need to work on to get that to community? Oh, you're on mute.
I just want to back up just a second. So with the Parent University, the advocacy series that I have shared with you, there's one that's happening on March 12th.
Oh, great.
And that is Betsy Sweet, who's going to be talking about the one-on-one on basic, advocacy, one-on-one. And then we have Dr. Amy Johnson herself, who's going to talk about the EPS funding um, on April 2nd. And then there's in between, I'm still waiting for another, a confirmation on, examples of campaigns, advocacy groups that have gotten strong, results, like Maine Women's Lobby and, the Maine Association for Early Childhood Education. They have done a lot on moving early childhood education in Maine. So that's what those are two organizations that I have been talking with to
Yeah.
talk about how they have done as an example. So Betsy could talk about the um, broad scope of what does it look like, what does the legislative, how do you put a bill, what are the systems in place? And then these folks will be, what does it look like on the ground when you have a bill that you want um, to promote campaign for. So that's sort of like, that's one strategy. And then the other strategy is a longer term strategy. When will this bill, 312, is it 3 LD 312?
It's 318. Is that what you said, Ellie? Ellie? Is that 38? I know it has an 8 in it.
So is it 318? Yeah, so this directive LD 318, is it going to be for the following school year or
That no one has said that out loud. I think that there was some discussion within the committee about the timeline, but I'm not sure anyone has definitively said that.
okay. So because then that means we will have time. And then if and you were in an email that Ryan asked me to have organize a invitation for breakfast with our legislative delegation.
Yeah.
So that's another approach that we could be all on the same page. Um, and then there is this one. I'm not clear what to, I mean, until I think I probably would want to have a meeting with Amy just to talk about what it really means
Yeah.
um, for Portland specifically.
Yeah.
The other question I have is because when I was at the session on Friday at the state, there was something about that the commissioner talked about the salary increases for new um educators. And
Yes.
is that part of this or is that a separate bill?
Well, the there's a bill right now that increases minimum salary to $50,000 across the state, and that's a separate bill.
Okay,
But there is part of the EPS funding formula in the regional adjustment that takes into consideration like the minimum salary.
how much we pay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's super helpful. And I think I still have a question. I'm not even sure who to ask about, like if to put to try to impact the bill language. I'm assuming that when that bill has a work session and a public hearing, that is when we want to have like testimony
Mm,
ready to go from the public to support. So I think that like that could be within the next couple of weeks.
okay.
Um, and so I think we'll need to figure out um, PTOs have expressed interest in supporting this, other groups of parents. So
Yes.
just like being able to, when I or anybody in this committee, if you hear that the bill is there and just flag it for each other, and then we'll have to like pivot pretty quickly to get out a message to folks in the community.
Yeah, we have to, but at first we have to, so I'm looking at the bill right now, the text. Resolve directing the Maine Education Policy Research Institute and the Department of Education to recommend changes to the essential programs and services funding formula. So that's the title.
Uh,
And so therefore, even just the title in itself, we have a lot of learning to do in general for everybody in terms of what
yeah,
EPS is, um, what the general purpose aid funding looks like for schools, and what does that mean? How is it different from when they say 55% funding? It's not 55% given to us
yes,
as Portland. So we have to explain all of that as well. So have an understanding. A lot of people don't, this is all new to many, many people.
yes. And it's not easy.
And yeah, definitely not. It's never been.
Mm-mm.
Uh, and so I'm still not clear what they're shifting, what that looks like and
Yeah,
how the weights are changing, if at all. Um, so yeah.
yeah.
So
I think that's what we'll see in the
I
next
will
couple of weeks. Yeah.
I'll give Amy a call. I know that she is doing a presentation next week um for board members and superintendents. So because I wanted to have her come next week, but she couldn't because of this. Um and so I would like to, speak with her and talk about the changes specifically because
Great.
it's going to affect us.
Yeah. And I think it like I just want us to, as we're engaging in this, I think it's important for us to think about in the short term, but also like what does this mean in 5 years for Portland? What does this mean for 10 years? And this original funding formula has been in place since 2005 and it has not been changed. So there's no guarantee that once it's updated that it's going to be regularly updated to I mean, I would hope so. I hope that they will continue to do that, but it's no guarantee. So I think we need to think about how it benefits us, but like how can it benefit us the most over time? Ugh. It feels like a big wrestly crocodile that we are engaging with here. So yeah, just again, and Ali, I know you're talking to lots of folks too. So just as you hear stuff, if you want to send it out to the committee, that would be super helpful. Great. And then the legislative calendar, or well, before we move to the legislative calendar, is there anything else on EPS funding that people are curious about or have thoughts about? I'll follow up again after this meeting with just an email with the recording of the presentations and the reports that have come out. There is the slideshow from their most recent presentation in the Diligent community for this meeting, but I'll send kind of like a collection of those things out to this committee for your viewing pleasure.
If
Yeah.
there are any other ideas that you have in terms of what we need to do, in terms of it's got to be a broad-based coalition here. It's
Yeah.
not just us in the school district, just our parents or just our educators. I think it needs to be um, including community members who may not have kids in school, but they're
Yeah.
residents of Portland.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am hopeful that in some of the groups that have been reaching out, asking to be involved in this, that we'll catch more of those people, because I do think you're totally right, Dr. Valenzuela, that this impacts everybody, whether or not you have kids in the school, right? And increased funding from the state means that the burden on the taxpayer locally will hopefully go down in the future. So it is important that we're getting input and representation from all those folks.
And the other thing to think about is also who are our allies, who are other school districts who are in the same situation as we are, in terms of, funding, from the state. So that's something to also understand who are the people there that we can reach out to and have a broad-based coalition, not just Portland.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would assume like Westbrook, maybe South Portland, anywhere there are more immigrant communities or New Mainers, Lewiston.
Lewiston, yeah, is one of our probably our biggest, most important allies in this. And I agree that it's a broad-based thing. I think once we're ready, we need to be very mindful, thoughtful about having a just a really comprehensive communications and advocacy strategy that using multiple media, video, in-person engagement, like it's big enough and important enough that I think we should really tackle it from all angles.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah,
And I want to understand, are they voting on this right now or so
that's what I was thinking too. That feels to me like the biggest question right now is like, is this going to go up for a vote? And like, yes, now, or is it going to be next session? Like, that is feels unclear to me and will really inform our strategy a lot. Ali, was that do you know?
I think it's this session. They haven't even opened the portal for next session unless they carry it over. So these are bills that like were already put in. It probably just didn't have language, or it had some things, and then they kept amending it. So it's the same bills for this this year. It's not going to be for the ones next year. Next year is going to open up, I'm thinking like August, September-ish.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what from what I know. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So it will probably be an amended version of LD 318, I think is what I'm hearing you say. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So all of those things, we'll just keep moving on. And then this week on the legislative calendar, there's a couple of things happening, which are, there are not any bills that we had flagged, but there is a bill about the credentialing of education personnel. And it's basically it's some changes that have already been approved, but this bill gives permission to make the changes. Um, it's not something that we had flagged and we were not tracking, but it's coming up this week. And then also 2129, which is an act to protect students by ensuring schools have complete information about school employees and applicants for employment. I just saw this one in the paper this week. I have not been following it yet. I don't think that it really falls into any of our priorities, but I wasn't sure if anybody's heard anything about that bill. Dr. Warren, has this come across your radar yet? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
So those are the two that are on the calendar for this week. There's also going to be a work session on Wednesday of this week about the statewide cell phone ban, bell-to-bell cell phone ban, and someone asked if we might be able to give testimony on our exception policy and how that has worked, kind of like what the guardrails are that we have used, and also that we have not used like language interpretation as an exception. And so I was curious, Dr. Warren, if we might be able to do a letter just to submit that on Wednesday. It'd be Wednesday afternoon.
It's Wednesday. Sure.
Sorry, Sarah.
Is there something in writing about what they're hoping we'll
Yeah,
address?
yeah,
Okay.
I can give that to you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think it has to be too fancy. I think they're just looking for input on another district that has implemented exceptions and what the impact has been. So I can get you that information.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't made a whole lot of exceptions, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And one second, I just wanted to see if anyone else had any bills outside education committee that they are following for this week.
I was on the sorry, I just have to pull up my notes. I was on the city's social services coordination call this morning.
Oh, great.
And Preble Street was just sharing the update on it was the same thing that Dr. Valenzuela was working on last week. But they were noting that there are two separate pieces of legislation and they're trying to kind of keep them disentangled. One is around making sure that there's sufficient funding for shelters and homeless shelters, and then another piece that's about revenue from businesses and taxes. See if I can find my notes. And that was going to come up in the coming week as well. So just trying to like keep both of those moving, but not assuming that the money that was going to come from that revenue was actually sufficient to cover the needs of homeless shelters to keep them running, and wanting to make sure that there's clarity around that. So it's a little bit tangential to us, but very important still for our community and population.
Yeah.
I didn't have the bill numbers associated with it, but I think they were the same ones from Dr. Valenzuela, what was the one that you testified on?
That was the appropriations.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think this was all part of that same package, but there were just two different pieces that were kind of moving in parallel.
Yeah, so that must be in the other, another department, because the one that I attended was specifically the education, appropriations on education.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't think there was like an immediate follow-up for us on that one, but it's just stuff that's moving in our sort of atmosphere that's relevant to our community.
Yeah. Helpful to keep on our radar. And then also I checked in with Gia Drew at Equality Maine about the upcoming referendum around trans athletes. And I think it may be helpful to have Gia or someone from her team come to talk to us about how we can, to one, know more about the issue and how we can best advocate around it. Just because it seems like there's a pretty big investment in passing that financially and otherwise. So I do think it falls under our priority of student rights. So I think we could spend some time on that. Kind of once we understand what's happening with EPS, I think that could be kind of the next chunky thing that we start to put some attention on. Okay. Does anybody have anything else? All right, then. Then I'm gonna move to adjourn us. Is there a second? All right, beautiful. All those in favor? Great. So we are adjourned at 8:04, and I will see you all tomorrow night at the board meeting. Take good care of yourself, and we'll see you then.